And one of the things that I hear from people is that they think that there's this Google sandbox that they go into. So whenever they take on a new site, they say that, well, it might be in the sandbox for a little bit of a time, we don't really get much traffic, and then suddenly it moves out of the sandbox and we start getting traffic. I'm not so sure I lean towards that thinking. So some people think there is a sandbox. I think that there's probably not a sandbox. What I think actually happens is that those sites are sitting there with no backlinks to them. So they're sitting off on an island. And as we know, Google finds websites by crawling through the links from other websites. So if you have no backlinks, you're not going to get traffic. And then suddenly along the way, you start to get some backlinks and Google finally finds you and starts to index your site. There are actually two ways that Google knows about your site and indexing it. And the first one is this crawling from other backlinks. The other way is through Google Search Console. I think it's one of the tool sets that everyone should make sure they've set up for their sites. A lot of web developers will set up Google Analytics and they'll forget Google Search Console. Now, it used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, and then Google's added a lot to it and made it a lot more useful as well. So now we have Google Search Console. And what we can do with a new site, if you take a new site over, is go and inspect that site. So you use the URL inspection over on the side, and then up in the top area, you put your website. Press enter, and then you can request Google to index your site. So you can actually start that indexing off a lot quicker. Now, I love Google Search Console. It's one of my favorite tools. And I'm going to give you a tip on something else that I use this particular tool set for. And that's, I love blogs, getting blogs up and using them for my keywords. And I want them indexed as quickly as possible. I want them done as quickly as possible. So my tip to you is, as soon as you do your blog and you've got your URL for your blog, you should come in here, use the inspection tool, put your blog's address in there and get it indexed. So it's indexed as quickly as possible and it can start ranking for your keywords. So that's a little tip along the way. I do love the tool, and before we leave it, there's another one that I want to actually talk about. So there's lots of things you can see with it. Links are one of the most important. You can see what links you're getting without having to go to another tool set. But the one that I really think is important is this sitemaps one. So you can have your sitemap set up for your website and use a tool. Some of the plugins do this. Rank Math and Yoast will set up the sitemap for you on your site. And that will show the pages that Google needs to go and look at. It kind of tells Google what are the important pages to you and what you think are important. So it's really handy for Google, especially with extremely large sites, because you can really optimize your crawl budget by using this. So you get it set up with your plugin, one of those tool sets, and then you go into Google Search Console, into this sitemaps area, and you tell Google where that sitemap is. Now, I don't only just set this up for all my sites because of the SEO side of things. The other reason that I do it is that early on in my career, I helped a client bring their site back after it had been hacked. Because they had a sitemap in place, it actually meant that the reinstatement of the site was a lot quicker than it would have been if we didn't have a sitemap in place. So it's a little bit of a security and coming back from a hacker problem. So I make sure I have a sitemap in place for those two reasons. Another tool, or another file that you need to check on your sites is the robots.txt file, TXT file. Now, this file lives on your root directory, under your root directory. So you can go and look at your file by going to your website /robots.txt, and it will open up with something like this area down here, where it will show you for the different bots that are out there, what it will allow them to see or what it will actually disallow them from seeing. So it's telling them what areas they can't go into. And there's valid reasons for that. There's things like when I do WordPress sites, I don't really want Google to be indexing the WP admin area. E-commerce sites, you know, your checkout pages and things like that, you don't want to actually index. So there's valid reasons for things to be in the robots.txt file. It's just something that I go and look at to make sure when I take over a site that there isn't something in there that shouldn't be in there. And that's from an experience. Once again, I had a client site. We were trying to work out why this page wasn't ranking and wasn't getting up in the engines. And I finally went back and looked at the robots.txt file, and it was a Joomla site. Someone had put something in earlier and then renamed things the same as that earlier item, and it was disallowed. So for me, from that point onwards, it came onto my checklist, and I go and check robots.txt every time.